Call the meeting to order. I'd ask you to join us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Gehrig?
Here.
Grinberg?
Here.
Pepcorn?
Here.
Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. Couple announcements. The Glass Ray Shelter and Veterans Drop-In Center has been selected as the charity of the month for the Reinventing Recovery, an event hosted by the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo Chamber of Commerce on Tuesday, September 24th. First Lady Catherine Burgum will share her personal story of alcohol addiction and bring a message of hope to those who may be struggling. Attendees are asked to consider bringing food or personal care items to support the clients of the shelter. The Arts and Culture Commission has released a call for artists for public art projects that will enhance the community, a neighborhood, or a site where they are located. Artists of all disciplines and skill levels are encouraged to apply, as well as public and private organizations. Applications can attend question and answer question on October 11th prior to submitting their proposal. For more information about the Q&A session and to see results from recent public art survey, visit fargoartsandculture.com. Libraries are hosted video today, so we put a lot of things for the library. The library in Prairie St. John's will host a mental wellness education series starting September 24th at the main library, and the first session is entitled Supporting Recovery During the Holidays. Other upcoming sessions will be self-care, myths, strategies, and the mind, question, persuade, refer for suicide prevention, and battling the winter blues. A weekly craft noon events for school-age kids returns today, and the sessions will run through December 17th. Teens are invited to participate in leather bookmark craft events September 24th and 26th. The One Book, One Community Reading Project continues with the presentation by Clay County archivist Mark Peel on September 26th at the main library, titled The History of Florence Klingelsmith, one of the pilots featured in the Fly Girls book that was a native to Clay County. Also, the 2019 UND Air Race Classic team will give a talk on September 28th at the Carlson Library and their experience as air race pilots. We're going a lot about pilots this month. The Carl Ben Elson story will be presented September 29th at the main library. But if you don't like to fly, then you can take up on October 1st the Gasper School of Dance at FM Ballet for Spooky Ballet and Storytime session, where kids will hear the story and learn some basic dance steps. The Jazz and Fall Concert Series is October 6th at the main library with the Max Junk Quartet. And this week, several librarians from the library are leading sessions at the North Dakota Library Conference in West Fargo. They'd like to learn from us. Finally, we're going to show you a video that highlights the library.
The Fargo Public Library is a popular collections library for the city of Fargo. We provide a wide variety of programs, technologies, and collections for the community at our 3 locations and out in the community. I think we have the task of having such a variety based on the diversity of our community, and basically that's our challenge, and we enjoy taking it on. An example of community engagement is we have a book bike that allows us to move collections out to community events, have library staff there with technologies where we can remotely register people for library cards and allow the checkout of items.
So there are things that they don't have to actually physically come into the library to use and access. We're trying to go to the people a little more and be more visible in the community.
So for us in the Children's Services Department, it means getting outside of our 4 walls. First of all, kids can't usually get to the library on their own unless they have a neighborhood library. Second of all, we also recognize that a lot of families in the city of Fargo don't have reliable transportation, and that there are so many great activities that are going on outside of the library's 4 walls that are community events that we want to take part in and share the message of what we have at the library and make our case for why it's important for parents and families to come here. And we also like to make sure that they understand what we have to offer. A lot of people will call and ask about an event and they'll say, well, how much does that cost? And I love to be able to say, it's all free. It's everything we do is free to the public. Anyone can participate. You don't have to have a library card. You don't have to meet any special requirements. You can come. And so community engagement for us is about getting out, spending time with kids outside of our four walls who may not have the means to get here.
We also have a Metro Arts Pass, and that is a pass that you can check out from the library. It's gonna give you opportunities to get tickets to various events or cultural programs in the community. There are also some free admittance to the Red River Zoo in there. There's just a wide variety of things that with that pass you can get access to. We have a library of things, so these are objects that people wouldn't expect to find at a library, and these items can be checked out. So we have mobile hotspots, so wireless access, people can check out those. We also have board games that people can check out. It's kind of a neat thing. Some of the board games these days are getting kind of expensive and you're not sure you want to invest in one, so it's a great way to try one out. We have adventure backpacks for kids. We also have North Dakota State Park passes that are available for people to check out, and that gets them free admittance to State Park here in North Dakota.
Our thing is to make kids avid readers, to want to read. Because we know from research that kids who are readers are more successful in school, that it makes life easier for everyone, parents and children alike, if they enjoy reading, if they're good at it, if they want to get better at it. My mom was a single mom. One of the things that I attribute to the fact that I'm the only college graduate in my family and I have a master's degree is that every night before I went to bed, she read to me. And that's the only thing that, or not the only thing, but one of the big things that I remember spending time in doing, and I want that for every kid too. Doesn't matter what background they have, where they come from, where they go to school, or where they live. I want every child to be able to have that opportunity. And so that's why I do what I do.
I really want to thank the community in terms of their support. And the other folks that certainly I want to thank is the staff. They're tremendously creative in what they've been able to do with the facilities themselves and moving beyond the walls of the facility to provide library services to the community.
Well, Tim, make sure you thank your staff for all you do. It's one of the things I constantly get good compliments about our library and services we provide. Item C, is there a motion to approve the order of agenda, moving item 4 from the consent agenda to regular agenda and omitting item 15 from the consent? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 9th, 2019 regular meeting?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent item numbers 1 through 29, excluding item number 4, which is moved to the regular agenda, and item 15th, which has been omitted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Grimberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 23, adoption of the 2020 City of Fargo budget and proposed tax levies. You have seen my proposed budget in the past. All have had an opportunity to visit with me as well. And I am putting forth to you the budget that I presented to you, the 2020 City of Fargo budget. I would ask for a motion.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Commissioner Gehrig.
Thanks. There's going to be a lot of discussion around this budget, especially regarding the property tax increase. We've been talking to people, and the most hated tax, if you will, is special assessments and property taxes, and this budget does not address those things. There are a few very simple things we can do that would at least make it so there was no increase to the mills. So I'm going to propose a few of those things. The COLA, I sent you guys an email a couple weeks ago, maybe longer ago, saying that if we went to a 3-2-0 COLA, if you were in the city for 5 or less years, you get a 3% increase. 5 to 15, you get a 2% increase. Over 15, 0% increase for the COLA this year. That would save the city of Fargo $1 million. So I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Being no second, any further discussion? Mr. Garrick?
I got a few. Again, with the COLA, we addressed the pay for the fire department and the PD and the bus drivers earlier this year. We adjusted their pay. It was a dramatic increase. I think it was $1 million for the PD and fire department. I think it was around $400,000 or $500,000 for the bus drivers for that. So we've addressed their pay already. A COLA is a costing adjustment, right? We've made that adjustment already. That was just a matter of a few months ago. So if we remove the PD, the fire department, and the bus drivers out of the COLA, that would save the city of Fargo $600,000. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Any other discussion? Mr. Garrick?
I would make a motion that the city commissioners do not receive a COLA this year.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Mr. Garrick?
So we're raising your taxes, and we get a pay increase. Okay. I just want to point out that we're making, in 2020, for this budget, we're taking $13 million from the state of North Dakota. This is brand new money that we've never had before. We're looking at that, and then we're increasing your taxes. I think people of Fargo are realizing this. They're not getting any relief. And speaking of property taxes, if we do nothing, if we keep the mills the exact same as they were this year, the city of Fargo takes in 6.5% more just by virtue of valuation increases. But we're telling people of Fargo that's not enough. We want 11%. We want to add 2 mills to the budget. That would make an 11.5% increase for how much we're taking in through property taxes. That's a pretty dramatic increase in just 1 year. And it would be remiss to not notice that happened a couple years ago. For the last few years, we've been taking in 8, 9, up to 12% increases through property taxes. That's a dramatic amount for people to absorb. So we're going to vote later today about low-income housing and how we're going to incentivize that and make that happen. But at the same time, we're looking at normal people who maybe first-time homeowners, maybe they're elderly, and they're seeing their property taxes go up. Where's their relief? Let's give the people of Fargo a COLA. Let's reduce the amount they have to pay the city of Fargo. Obviously, I can't support this budget. It's too high. It's $108 million, not 103. And I think that we're not addressing the issues people have demanded that we address.
I would just comment the Prairie Dog Fund is money for infrastructure. That's not really necessary to the budget. So the Prairie Dog Fund of $13 million is to help us pay down infrastructure, and I believe the Specials Committee has recommended us to look into that, and we will have some answers of what to do with that money, but it's not proposed at this time. Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Gehrig?
No.
Strand? Mahoney?
Aye. Resolution approving the issuance of revenue bonds by the Colorado Health Facilities Authority for the benefit of Sanford Evangelical Lutheran Good Samaritan Society, Series 2019, Sanford. Kent Costin to address.
Good evening, Commission. This is essentially an IRS compliance requirement with regard to the issuance of tax-exempt bonds by the Colorado Health Facilities Authority. You're required to have a public hearing because there are certain facilities within the city, i.e. the Good Samaritan Society, that is impacted by the money that's being refinanced here. So basically the requirement is to hold a public hearing and authorize the issuance of the revenue bonds.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the issuance of these revenue bonds? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item C and D are continuances. Is there a motion to continue these two?
So moved. Mayor, did we miss A?
I think we did.
Oh, sorry, I was going to get to that just because of the resolution of the revenue bond I thought was easier, John. I can go back to that, yes. Item A, application by La Fiesta Mexican and American Grill doing business as at La Fiesta and Mexican and American Grill for a Class F alcoholic beverage license at 1109 39th Street South. Steve Sprague to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a Class F alcoholic beverage license, which allows full alcohol service at the table or booth. We did the background check, and there were no issues on that, so it comes to you with a recommendation of approval.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this application? Anyone present to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Now the continued issue, item CD, is there a motion to do a continuance for both these items?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Number E, right-of-way vacation of the alley between lots A, B, C, D, E, F, T, U. The vacated 10-foot alley adjacent to lots T and U, Hagerman subdivision of Part Block 2, Roberts addition. The approval recommended by Planning Commission on 4-2, and they had a continuance until it come to this. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. As the Mayor has stated, the item 24E is a vacation of right-of-way. In fact, the next three items which I'll be presenting are all vacations of right-of-way, 24E, F, and G. Here it is the first day of fall, and we're still talking about our summer vacations. I'm going to, if I may, Commissioners, there are a few items that are in common to all these, so in the interests of keeping the presentations short here, if I may just go over those three items. Our Land Development Code does not have any specification for vacation of right-of-way. When we get a vacation of right-of-way case, we follow the findings in North Dakota Century Code, Chapter 40-39, as indicated in your staff report. These are all in an area zoned DMU, downtown mixed use, although the zoning does not affect the vacation at all. The representatives, these are all brought forward by the Kilbourne Company. Their representatives, Mike Zimney and Keith Lear, are with us this evening and may wish to address their individual cases. And so now we'll look at the individual ones here, Mayor. This is item 24E. This is a vacation of right-of-way in the Hageman subdivision of Roberts Addition. Just to locate you here, this is 1st Avenue North, 2nd Avenue North, Roberts Street here. And this alley, which is not very well defined, it looks like it's part of the parking lot. It's mainly defined by the utility lines that go through it. You can see the overhead utility lines. That is proposed to be vacated. This is part of a project known as the Kessler Project, which also includes a replatting of the lots in this area and eventually the construction of a new mixed-use building. There's, again, the zoning map and alley vacation plat there that, again, shows the plat. And Mr. Zimney from the Kilbourne Group is with us to address this case if you wish to do so. Staff's Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation, Commissioners. Thank you.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this vacation? Anybody wish to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Strand and Grinberg. Discussion? Roll call vote.
Strand?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item G, vacation vacale of alley of Block 21, Kenny and DeVitt's second edition.
Commissioners, thank you. This one and the next one are both part of the same project. This is, again, to locate you here, this is 4th Avenue North, Broadway. This is often known as the old Goodyear tire facility here and parking lot here. This 5th Street is a pretty wide street here. They're proposing to vacate 21.5 feet of this street. It's part of a development, another Kilbourne project called the Mercantile, which is going to be a parking ramp with surrounding retail and residential uses similar to the recently opened Roco or Roberts Commons ramp on 2nd Avenue and Roberts Street. And to make that project fit on this site, I believe to have access, vehicular access, the developer proposes to add additional 21.5 feet to their project. Again, there's an aerial view here. The zoning, again, is DMU. Here's the vacation plat that shows the vacation, and just as a warm-up to the next one, the next item will be vacating the alley here. These are two separate plats. Commissioners, you will note in your staff report that this item and the subsequent item have a note about a contingent approval, and I'd like to take a moment to explain that to you. The suggested motion includes a contingency, and the contingency is this, that in these areas, there are both city utilities and privately owned utilities, such as gas, electrical, cable, fiber, and so on. And the city utilities have been accounted for, but the applicant is still working with the private utility providers to account for how those utilities are going to be dealt with, because as you see in the findings that are required by the state, the utilities must all be accounted for. They can't just be left lying out there. And so the applicant is working to either create easements to allow the existing utilities to remain, or to define a relocation agreement at which a date certain in the future the utilities will be relocated. And the applicant has been working with the private utility companies for a few weeks on this, still doesn't have quite all the documentation finalized and approved by the city engineer, but the contingency would allow you to approve the vacation with the contingency that the plat would not be finalized and signed by the city engineer and recorded until the city engineer to approve the paperwork for these either these relocation agreements or these easements. So again, it allows the project to keep moving forward as we continue, as the applicant continues to work with the private utility providers. So with that in mind, the recommendation in your staff report includes the contingency. So that would be, if you vote to favor that, that would be the motion to make on this one.
So F would be, if there's anyone who publicly wants to speak about the right-of-way vacation in the portion of Fifth Street North, can they speak at this time, please? Does anybody wish to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I have a question first, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair,
Pepcorn.
and it's for Eric. So I signed the release to the easement because my property is right to the east of that. So should I not vote on that's my question. Because I don't know if that's, it doesn't have anything to do with my property, but the easement, I signed that, so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so the standard is you have a direct and substantial personal or pecuniary interest in it. As I understand it, you don't really have any dog in the fight, and I don't think that constitutes a conflict, so.
Thank you. It's better to ask questions. I get enough trouble without asking them.
I appreciate the question.
So do I have a motion, or the suggested motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Strand.
I have a question. Donald, I'm just curious, two things. So I understand this better. When they vacate it and it becomes part of the lot that will be developed, does that
Yes, sir, that's
change
correct.
the ownership over to the developer?
Yes, sir. That is taken care of by the assessor's office. The planning department doesn't do anything with that, but so that gets added to it, and then that would increase the size of the lot, and then they also have to pay taxes on that increased area of the lot.
What's the value of that property that we're vacating?
I don't know, sir. We don't include that as part of our analysis. I don't know what the value of the 21 and a half feet is.
Is there no value?
Jim, can you speak to that? Jim
I don't know
Gilmore?
that, sir.
I suppose there's a developer's agreement.
Square foot of value of land times square feet.
I mean, I think the purchase price when they acquired this property with those improvements was probably over $45 a square foot. You know, typically the right-of-way really doesn't belong to the city. It always belongs to the adjacent property owner. So anytime we vacate right-of-way, that property is transferred back. It's not really, you know, publicly owned property. It's right-of-way for the public to use to gain access to property. So that's why we really don't have a policy to try to sell right-of-way.
So the ownership was theirs, but the right-of-way was what was there, and the right-of-way is what we're vacating?
When you approve subdivisions, you know, the property owner owns all of the land, and then they dedicate certain right-of-way to the city. If they ever, you know, change the subdivision and get rid of the streets, then that property goes back to the who had owned it before, or, you know, 50% each side.
So this isn't a gift in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Grunberg.
Aye.
Gehrig.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Now we go to item G, alley vacation on alley of Block 21, Kenny and DeVitt, second edition.
Yes, sir, thank you. And again, very similar to the last one, This is also in that block that the Goodyear facility was on there. That's the alley that we looked at. Again, a request to vacate that in the DMU zone. The applicant has provided an alley vacation plat, and again, this does have the contingent approval on it, as the applicant does continue to work with the private utility providers to get the required agreements or easements executed for the city engineer's review, but this does allow the project to continue to move forward. And again, staff's recommendation is stated in your staff report, and that with the contingency would be the one to make if you were to vote in favor of this.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this alley vacation? Anybody wanting to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item H, appeal Planning Commission decision on 8/6/19 to approve conditional use permit that would allow bed and breakfast at SR3, single dwelling residential zoning district in lots 2 and 3, block 5, Chase Roberts Edition, 611 8th Street South, continued from the 9/19 regular meeting. Nicole Crutchford to start the discussion.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. And as you remember, I was in front of you 2 weeks ago. We heard some testimony on this item, and as such, you voted to table the item. Since then, not much new has developed. We've added some additional content in your staff report. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, we've had lots of conversation with, I would say, 3 to 4 primary neighbors. And while we attempted to try to find a win-win or a compromise, one was not found. And so I believe so in your packet is still additional correspondence from applicant or the appellant, as well as property owners surrounding. And so really just here to answer any questions or to present this further if you'd like. Maybe just one point of clarification, because I did get a couple emails and calls after the city commission meeting. We did, you might remember, you took 2 votes, one to clarify that supermajority. We did receive what we would call protest if this was a zoning item. We have it in our standard code to consider protests as part of a zoning ordinance. It's silent to the land development code in terms of anything other than an ordinance. You did vote 3-2 to not require a supermajority. So just a reminder there.
And Nicole, does this reopen a public discussion, or is this now, it was tabled to come back to us? The public discussion was held last meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Commissioner Grinberg, you had asked us, we tabled it for 2 weeks. We've done that. What is your feelings at this point? What would you like to do?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spent considerable time with Nicole in discussions, and those for and against granting the Planning Commission approval. And as Nicole alluded to, the desire was to table this for 2 weeks to see if there was a compromise that could be reached. As she has described tonight, that from what I gathered in my observations and emails, that has not been accomplished. So in lieu of whether you're going to open up for more public comment, my sense is each of us will have to make a decision what they think is the right thing to do. I know in my mind what I'm going to do. And so I'll just stop there and see if there's any other comments before I make a motion.
Mr. Strand.
I make the recommended motion to allow the conditional use permit.
Is there a second?
Second, because Commissioner Strand read my mind.
Any further discussion?
Great minds think alike.
Roll call vote.
Can I have a couple of,
Pepcorn.
to me, this block is very unique. It's probably the oldest homes, and it's one contiguous block of all single-family homes. I think they're probably, they're some of the most special homes in our whole town as far as historic value. And to me, there's appropriate places to put businesses and things like that, and this block is not one of them. I think that this is when you think of pictures of residential downtown historic Fargo, this is the block. And I know there's apartments that are close by and things like that, but I just think this is very historic, and they're very unique homes, each one of them. And so I will not be voting in favor. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
Yes. Item I, amendments to the 2019 Action Plan Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Programs. Explained by,
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
don't have your name, I'm sorry.
Tia Braseth.
Thank you.
So the purpose of this public hearing is to hear from citizens regarding a proposed update to the 2019 HUD Action Plan. Updates are similar to those that you've recently seen regarding locations and budgets. So each time we have one of these updates, we'll be coming to you for your approval. Today's updates include identification of 2 project sites and budgets for the previously approved affordable senior housing development activity, which are outlined in your packets. No action is required on this item tonight, but is scheduled for your approval on October 7th after the 30-day public comment period has ended. The Planning Commission and Community Development Committee have already approved the proposed amendment. So I'll note that the public comment period runs through September 26th, and of course, comments may be received in person, in writing, email, via phone. And with that, I'll just ask you to open the public comment period unless there are any questions.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the Community Development Block Grant and Investment Partnership Programs? Anybody wish to speak? If not, we would close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gehrig? Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item J, application filed by City Flats LLC for payment in lieu of taxes for a project located at 1329 Fifth Avenue North, which applicant will use in operation of affordable multifamily apartment building. Ben Hush, or Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. This is a low-income housing project called City Flats LLC, be located at 1329 Fifth Avenue North in Fargo. There'd be 49 apartments in this building. It's a 5-story building. We include both 1, 2, and 3-bedroom homes. They're applying for tax credits from the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program that's administered by the state of North Dakota. And so if these tax credits are approved, they'll be required to, that 100% of the units go to low-income people in our community. 9 of the units would be supportive housing aimed at people who are homeless. And so in those cases, they may not be able to collect any rent at all. There are another 4 units would be very low income, and over 60% of the units would be for people who are earning less than half the median income in Cass County. Average rents will be $603 a month. Some people might have a little bit higher incomes. They'll still be qualified. The reason the city has a policy of supporting these with lower property taxes is when the city assessor values a building, he can't look at the rent restrictions in determining the value. So the city assessor would look at this like any other apartment building, say it's worth $5.7 million, and the property taxes on the building would then be $87,000 a year, or roughly $173 per month per apartment. And that becomes a burden on trying to manage this, this building and make it affordable to build. Because low-income housing tax credits don't cover all of the costs of the building. They also have some mortgages as well as operating expenses. So the city of Fargo has always supported these low-income housing tax credits and still required them to pay a certain percentage of the rent as property taxes. So if this didn't have any tax exemption at all, they would pay $87,000 a year. Instead, they'll pay approximately $23,000 a year, which includes all present property taxes on the land. Our community, does need low-income housing, particularly supportive housing for people who've been homeless. And these applications are also very competitive. And so if cities don't support the applications financially with some lowered property taxes, it's unlikely that this would be able to be funded. And if we don't support it, it's unlikely that they would be able to proceed even if they did receive the tax credits. There's typically 9 to 10 applications a year, and only 4 to 5 of those are successful. This one was unsuccessful last year, but it got real close to getting funded, and so they're optimistic it'll be funded this year. At least they're going to give it a good try. We have, as required by state law, we've checked with the Fargo School District and Cass County. Both those boards have said they'd be willing to participate if you provide the property tax exemption. So the recommendation before you is to provide that 15-year payment in lieu of taxes. It started at about $18,000 a year, which is $18,000 more than you're receiving now, and would go up at 2% a year for 15 years. I should note that the requirements of the state of North Dakota are that these housing units have to be affordable for a period of 30 years, and typically, even once they even get to the end, they typically stay affordable longer because they're a little bit older building at that point in time. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. The developer was not at the meeting tonight, but she is available by phone if you have any questions that I'm not able to answer.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in regards to this pilot in lieu of taxes? Anybody present wishes to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the type of housing we need in Fargo, and this is the type of housing that needs public support. In my opinion, I'm very black and white when it comes to tax breaks for market rate housing, especially when we have overbuilt apartments in town. But there's absolutely no doubt about it that we have a need for affordable housing. And when you have these, and I wish we could do more of them, we have 1 or 2 a year in Fargo. You know, other cities, they don't have the limits because of population that North Dakota has. But when you go travel around and listen to what other cities do, it's low-income housing tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, LIHTC. That's the key to building affordable housing. And we're limited because we can only do what the state allows us relative to the program's availability. So we get what we get, and we're lucky to get what we've gotten, in my opinion. So I'm absolutely all for affordable housing. When you can take and put this amount of support into something and have 30 years of affordability for 42 different units, that's not even in the same world as putting out and giving the same tax breaks or similar tax breaks to market rate housing where it's not affordable at all in any assured way. I thank the developers for doing this and for bringing this project and putting it next to the other project. It's worth going and seeing. It's quality housing. It's going to carry us for 30 years, and I just wish we had a magic wand and could do more of it.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gehrig?
No.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item K, application by Computer Telephony Innovations, full tele system for a property tax exemption on a project located at 509 25th Avenue North, which application will use an operation telecommunications and software development company that manufactures telecommunications switching and billing software. Ben Hushka to explain this one.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, the Tax Exempt Review Committee met with the applicant. This is a primary sector business. They are going to be expanding their operation into an existing building at 509 25th Avenue North and going to do some renovations to it as well. You can see in the packet we do have our second to the last page of the packet. We do have our calculator that the Tax Exempt Review Committee uses, and they did reach over the 100 points required for a recommended approval. So Tax Exempt Review Committee recommends approval of a 5-year 100% exemption on the project improvements. And I believe the applicant is here tonight.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this tax exemption? Yes, sir.
Just to answer any questions you might have about our company and our project.
Mr. Grinberg.
The question caught my attention. Just describe cell phone scrubbing.
Okay, so we wrote an application to where so our customers can comply with a TCPA requirements, the FCC requires, that you cannot machine dial cell phones. And I'm sure everyone here has gotten phone calls that they don't want. But our application is that we receive every single phone call, every single phone number, we look that up and validate whether it's a cell phone or what kind of a number it is. If it's a cell phone, we'll block that call from being connected. So that's what CNI is. It's a cell number scrubbing app.
Great service.
Yeah.
Very good. Mr. Garrick.
If you don't get the incentive, will you still continue?
Yeah, we made that decision about 3 years ago. We made a decision to move our company from Nebraska to North Dakota for 2 reasons. One reason is the number of developers at NDSU graduates every year gives us an opportunity for a larger pool of candidates to hire. And the second is the business environment and the incentives that North Dakota offers for companies like us, that's, to move to North Dakota and to grow in North Dakota. So that's why we're here. And so we made the decision a long time to do that, and we would move forward without the tax incentive. But that's part of why we're here.
Thank you for your honesty.
Any other discussion? Mr. Pepcorn.
So I just looked at the numbers. Right now you have 11, and then you would add approximately 8 new positions, is that right? And then I see 5 of them are $35 an hour. Is that correct?
Yeah, these are software developers, the $35 an hour plus developers.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Oh, do I have a motion? I'm sorry.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
That's right, he did public hearing. Sorry about that. Moved in second, and now any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gunberg?
Aye.
Garrick?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Special assessments for the maintenance of the Skyway system. Steve Sprague to explain. Nancy, you're up next.
Jumped right in front of Nancy there. So this is the annual maintenance of the Skyway. Couple of things to note with this one. This year the assessment comes up to $120,000, but the actual amount that each individual property is going to go down because we added the parking ramp. So the parking ramp comes in, provides additional dollars, and then everybody else's comes down a little bit. We use this money to do the heating, the cooling, the maintenance, the cleaning of the Skyway. If there's any questions?
Does anyone present wishes to speak about the special assessments on the Skyway system? Anybody wish to speak? We'll close the public hearing. Anybody have any questions of Steve?
Yeah, it's not in the agenda packet, so what's the dollar amount? Is it voluntary?
It's not in the packet, he's saying. So do you have the dollar amounts?
The dollar amount is $120,000 for the whole assessment. It's at zero interest. It just is we divide it up among the properties and they pay it. It's a 1-year assessment.
Is it voluntary?
No, it's not voluntary. It's something the city is assessing to maintain the Skyway.
Is there anyone that protested at all?
No, no protests.
Do you have a motion?
Move to
Mayor, I'm
approve.
still trying to see this in our packet. Was it added or? Okay.
Steve, what would they see if they saw it in the packet, the individual assessments?
Probably just the notice of the hearing, I think would be the only thing that would be in the packet.
So you wouldn't have the 125, and you wouldn't have no interest, and you wouldn't have any of those other things?
I don't think those details are typically in there.
Okay. They're just wondering what they normally would see. So they would have normally on the 125,000, zero interest, and it's actually gone down from before because of the parking ramp.
Correct.
Okay. John, do you have any questions of him? Can he clarify it more?
Was this added to our agenda?
It was. It was advertised for a public hearing for this time. Somehow it didn't get in the packet that Kember uses to make the agenda.
My question was, did we add it to our agenda?
Kember, do you want to answer that?
You're talking about us.
Us, did we add it to our, when we approved the agenda for tonight, did we add that?
It's a fair question.
Maybe we should, but
We did items 1 through 29.
Yes,
we
when
did the
you
consent.
approve, when you approve the order of agenda, you added that item.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I think we're fine with the notice.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Grinberg, you look like you had a question in your face.
I'm just trying to, I'm going to make a comment at the end of the meeting on this topic, but I'll wait till we get through the other topics, just for what it's worth. Go to the order comment regarding this. But that's what I'm trying to decide, so I'm going to wait till the end.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Next item, Nancy is up on this one. Proposed ordinance relating to e-cigarettes and e-liquids and restricting the sale of e-liquids to minors.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Mayor. Before you, you have a number of ordinances that address the vaping, and this came to our attention as a result of legislation out of the last legislative session, which is House Bill 1477, that increased the penalty, that added a penalty of $500 for the sale of e-liquids, flavored e-liquids to minors. We recognize that the penalty was not provided for in the ordinances, so we added, and proposed to you today is a new ordinance that would address the sale of flavored e-liquids to minors and increase, add a penalty of $500 to the person who sells the e-liquid. In addition, we added vaping to a number of the tobacco ordinances that increased the penalty of the sale of, not increased, but addressed vaping to sales of minors. So really the legislation is to address the illegal sale of the flavored e-liquids to minors and doesn't address directly the sale of e-liquids or vaping to those of legal age. In addition, we are looking at and have met with Fargo Cass Public Health, and the Board of Health is interested in looking at the administrative penalties that would be applicable to sales for all entities, that the entity itself, who is a licensed entity with the state of North Dakota and the city of Fargo, would also be subject to additional penalties as a result of the violation of the sale of the flavored e-liquids to minors. So that is what is presently before you today. Larry Annenson has been very involved in the drafting of these ordinances, and if you have any interest in more information, I'm sure that Larry would be available for that.
I think the question some people get with the vaping deaths they've had recently is, are there anything going to happen in the vaping industry because of those health-related issues, or is it, Commissioner Strand and I had a discussion about this, sometimes it's black market that's causing us a problem. Is there any proof that shows that any of this stuff sold at the present time that's with manufacturers is causing issues?
I'm not in a position to answer that. I know there has been a lot of discussion about that.
Can Larry come up and explain that? We'd be a little concerned not only that they sell to minors, but if they sell something to minors that can cause death, that's not something we'd be happy to see.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As you are aware that vaping is a public health concern, and there have been some deaths recently. I know the CDC, Food and Drug Administration, Health Department, and other partners have currently been investigating a variety of different pulmonary outbreaks related to vaping. That's why this topic came up during our August 16th Board of Health meeting. We wanted to help ensure that these products stay out of the hands of youth. Youth access to e-liquids, e-cigarettes is a serious issue for a variety of reasons, including harming brain development, breathing in toxins, cancer-causing chemicals, as well as the addiction component. Research also has been showing that individuals under the age of 18 oftentimes will have addictions to other drugs later on down the line. We consider tobacco, vaping as a gateway drug. So that's why it was brought up. I know that there is some talk about the black market producing e-liquid. One thing to keep in mind, that the e-liquid is not safe. It's not a safe product. It has chemicals. It is addictive. So that's not a safe alternative too. And there are some issues with the black markets as well. As time goes on, I anticipate more and more research coming out because more and more investigations happening all the time.
Commissioner Garrick.
Is this just for flavored, or is there unflavored e-liquid? I don't vape.
You know, in my eyes, and most people believe that there is no such thing as an unflavored liquid. An unflavored e-liquid is a tobacco-flavored liquid. And to be honest with you, that is what is concerning a couple states, and many communities have banned e-flavored liquids just because there's some that are candy cane, bubble gum, gummy bears, so on and so forth, which do appeal to younger folks. But in my eyes and many professionals' eyes, there really isn't technically an unflavored e-liquid.
Commissioner Garrick.
Is there a benefit to saying flavored in this ordinance? Can it just be e-liquid of any kind?
Well,
I find it confusing, because if I sell you a tobacco flavored one, for example, I say that's not flavored, then I have something in the ordinance that I'm not sure is holding water, I guess.
We actually did discuss that, and we think that tobacco, anything that is the e-liquid is a flavored liquid.
Okay.
So it's whether it is had an addition or not, it is covered as flavored e-liquids is what's provided for by state statute that we would be adopting.
Thanks.
Is there any president wishes to speak to this ordinance?
So, good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. I'm Darius. I actually own a sports vape, a vape shop here. We've been here for almost 6 years now. First off, I want to clarify, I don't oppose any type of fines imposed on anybody, my shop, any other shops that sells to minors. We sell adult-only products. So I just want to clarify, are we saying that the shop would be responsible for the fine plus the employee that sells it? I would like to, I guess I'm asking her that question. Which I wouldn't, I'm just trying to clarify the actual wording of it, but I would not be opposed to that personally for my shop. Anybody that sells these to a minor should get a strict fine.
I appreciate that, and what is being proposed today is what's proposed by statute, which is any person that sells it, so that would be the individual. What we are intending to propose, that I indicated in the letter, is to bring back to you an adjustment to the penalties that would be applicable as administrative penalties after further consideration to the facilities themselves. Right now, the penalties are as provided for by ordinance. The first violation is a warning. The second violation is a 3-day suspension and so forth. So we would be bringing back to you for further consideration what those penalties should be and could be under the administrative licensing of this board.
Commissioner Garrick.
I'm just trying to compare this to alcohol a little bit. So we recently adjusted our penalties for that. So if you sell alcohol to a minor as an establishment, is it the individual that gets fined or the establishment gets fined?
I don't have those ordinances in front of me, but I think that they are two separate. There's an administrative violation for the entity for selling to a minor, and there is also a criminal penalty of an individual selling to a minor.
Okay,
So it's this past legislative session, there was a House Bill 1477, which was originally, the language of it was to ban all flavored vape liquids. So I think that was going to exempt just a tobacco flavored. The language of that got changed to just a stricter fine. Because right now, if a shop like mine or a gas station, if they fail a compliance check, it was just a probation period, which I too think is too lenient as well. So it sounds like, I think it just got, the language was just changed to a $500 fine. And then to reiterate on these recent deaths, just last week the FDA and the CDC both came out with warnings to not vape black market cartridges. What's happening now, it sounds like, because this was tested now in New York, California, and Oregon, is people are illegally selling cannabis oil tanks. And vitamin E acetate is being used as a thickening agent in these to volumize them out. So in 84% of the cases so far, of the 480 illnesses that we've had reported, they've all admitted to vaping. They've been vaping, but they've been using illicit THC cartridges, not the type of stuff that's sold in my store, nicotine products. This is an industry that's been here for 20 plus years almost, and now just the last 45 days, these illnesses have come out. I do not actually disagree with anything that's proposed there. I 100% support that. I agree with any type of stringent fine imposed on a business or an establishment that sells to a minor. If we're concerned about youth getting these, which obviously it's getting brought up every single day in our media, if we want to solve that, I would recommend, please talk to shop owners like myself. Okay, because there is nobody right now in our country that wants minors to not have these any more than me and shop owners, because our business has not been good these last 60 days with all of the stigma that we have out there. And as of right now in Fargo, I can only speak for Fargo, every single compliance check that's been done by law enforcement, every single vape shop has passed. Okay, we do a very good, we have, I can only speak for my store, but we have 3 different layers of ID checks where we, right when they walk in, right when they sell, and then we also have a scanner as well. So with the scrutiny and the stigma that we are under, we don't want to sell to minors either. I have personally brought in Representative Dobrovich, who's the representative in my district where my store is, and I have proposed many things that she will be bringing up next legislative session to keep these out of the hands of youth. Because my business has been is being affected by this, with the stigma, and I do not want this happening any more than anybody else. I'm personally going to leave my card here. If anybody wants to hear my ideas, I don't want to spend any more time talking about that, but if anybody would, I would be more than willing to come back, talk to anybody about this, because this is something that I want to solve myself as well. So I'm open to any questions if anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you. I assume, Nancy, you might have his contact information if there's anything you want to discuss with him.
I will leave my cards right here if anybody wants to grab any right here. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll sit back down.
Discussion?
Can I just add one thing? You asked about whether the person selling gets a fine, and it also says in there, every person, firm, or corporation violating the ordinance is punishable up to $1,000. So I'm guessing that includes the business, that if one is sold, it's the person, but also the business can get a fine. Does that sound right, Nancy?
It's the actual individual that is selling the product presently that would be subject to the criminal penalties, and we will be bringing back to you the penalties that are applicable to the business as far as the violation goes for the administrative penalties.
I can assure you that if we're talking about penalizing the actual seller, the employee, plus the business, there will not be a shop like mine that will oppose that at all. I can 100% promise that. That's not an issue at all.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this?
I just want to clarify one point in relationship to the black market products as well as the products sold in e-cigarette shops and other tobacco retail shops. We follow the recommendations of CDC, and CDC at this time during their investigation is recommending and discouraging anyone from using e-cigarettes and e-cigarette products until they complete their investigation. Not just the black market products, the products that are sold in e-cigarette shops. So I want to make sure that that's clear, and that's a recommendation from CDC.
Sir, I don't want to turn this into a debate, but just last week the CDC also said that if you have quit smoking combustible cigarettes using a vape product, to not go back to your regular cigarettes as well. That was also confirmed by the CDC last week as well. So right now there is a lot of stigma. I don't want to turn this into a debate, but it's still up in the air right now. But what I can say is the CDC has come out and said 84% of these cases they did admit to vaping THC cartridges.
Okay, we'll stop debate now. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. This is really an important discussion, and maybe Larry Onneson and you can continue some of this at the public health meetings coming up. And I think that's
absolutely. My cards are right here if anybody ever wants to get in touch with me. So I'm more than willing to help rectify this situation.
A couple of questions I have, sure. Though, without getting too off into the weeds. Don't we have a black market for e-cigarettes for minors too?
Oh,
I mean, assuming that I'm not talking THC black market vapes. I'm talking e-cigarettes that people can order online. Or can they?
Yes, anytime you have a product with an age restriction on it, you're going to have that problem.
So we still have that issue, even if we have the state statute.
Correct.
We still
correct.
have access for our youth, and then your role with education, in public education and outreach, I'm assuming is pretty critical.
Oh, it absolutely is critical. And I know, you know, just talking to the youth, we hold a tobacco education class when minors are caught selling, possessing tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. You know, we hold a class here at Fargo Cass Public Health, and we ask them. They do say some that they do go into different shops and buy their products, but that is absolutely correct. We do compliance check with local law enforcement, and every single time our tobacco retailers, our vape shops have passed. So that is outstanding, and I think that is something that they should be proud of. We have a 94-95% pass rate on our tobacco compliance checks, which is great.
Yeah, when it comes to keeping these out of the kids' hands, the shops, we are not the enemy. Like Mr. Strand, you said about the online. One of the recommendations I had for Representative Dobrovich was to have anybody that wants to purchase these products or devices online would have to pay an extra $5 fee, and the courier would then check at the time of delivery. So it would give a little bit of money to USPS, UPS, FedEx, but the courier would actually check the ID there. They just implemented that in South Dakota recently. I think that would put a little fear into the kids that want to order these online, knowing that they're going to get checked as well. That just got implemented in South Carolina. I have personally worked with Mrs. Dobrovich on implementing that, and she is working on that right now as well.
Mr. Strand.
That answered it. I guess maybe Larry, you can address the topic of THC vapes. And I know that, didn't they have some up in Grand Forks, like 400 cartridges or something show up in Grand Forks, or of underground black market THC vapes that are probably very potentially,
yes,
who knows how
sir.
safe?
It was a couple of 19 and 20-year-olds, and they had multiple cash. They had the actual dry flower, which they used to make the cartridges, and they had over 400 cartridges. This is also found in Wisconsin as well, which has been the most problematic state for these illnesses, and it was just actually found in Phoenix as well. They're using these these oil cartridges, which you can actually get legally from like a dispensary we have here in Fargo. But people are also making these. This is now the way that people are now dealing cannabis. Instead of dealing dry stuff, they're dealing the oils.
This discussion will continue at Public Health, and I certainly wish we had the authority at the local level to discuss decriminalization and legalization of marijuana products, so that we wouldn't have the influx and the infusion of these black market products that are actually probably the root of the causes of health problems. You know, but we don't have that authority. And I know that the people will be voting on it again. They have voted on medical already, and they're vaping. You know, so it's a real complex issue we're in. And of course, we all stand for public safety and public health. On the other hand, we also want people to have choices and freedoms. So I look forward to this evolving and us all landing in a better place for the greater good of everybody.
So we'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion, please?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 26, you have my recommendations for appointments for the Housing and Redevelopment Authority as well as the MetroCog Policy Board. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve A and B.
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Construction project update. Brenda Daring to explain what's going on in the city of Fargo.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Not a whole lot. We're just wrapping up and getting ready for snow one day here. So again, I'd like to talk about, our sites that we keep all the updates on, Twitter, Facebook, and our fargostreets.com. And then most of our projects are progressing well. They should be completed on time or within the year. We might have a little bit of extension, but we should be getting most of them completed this year. There have been no safety accidents since our last update, August 26th. Small cell deployment has been underway along 42nd and 45th Street from Main to I-94, and we're starting to see a higher number of fiber excavation permits for downtown, and we think that's going to be supporting a new Verizon request coming in for next year for small cell. Work is progressing well around Block 9. Currently, we don't have any full street closures. We do still have the eastbound 3rd Avenue closed for the safety concerns of the building, and northbound Broadway is going to be closed this week. We have to do some evaluation. There's a CenturyLink duct line that we need to take a look at and see if they can get some storm sewer around it. So we will be closing one lane, that northbound lane on Broadway adjacent to the Block 9. Right now with the Roberts Alley, they're working within the alley. We don't have any avenue closures in relation to that project also. We are still working on the concrete spot repair on 42nd Street. That's from I-94 to 32nd Avenue South. And there was some fire line repairs over at the post office, so 2nd Avenue was closed in that vicinity, and that should be opening up tonight. 52nd Avenue, if everything goes well, by the end of the day today, they were pouring this morning, the last mainline pour of 52nd Avenue, and that would be from Veterans Boulevard West to 63rd Street. So this is the last of their mainline pours today, and then they will be working on turn lanes and impression concrete and sidewalk along that corridor along with the street lights. Main Avenue, that's the latest and greatest picture of our roundabout. That's the last portion to be open, is that 2nd Street and Main Avenue intersection. Things are going very well there. We're hoping at no later than October 11th, we should have that open east-west, and we're actually hoping maybe a little sooner if possible. There's been a little delay in that north east corner just with the flood wall being installed along there that's giving us a little bit of delay. Otherwise, we've got everything else completed and ready to open up.
Are there any questions from the commissioners? You didn't need to remind us of winter, Brenda, but otherwise it was a great presentation. Thank you very much. I'm glad we're making good progress. Your engineering team has been doing a great job. Item 4 is put in the main agenda, applications for property tax exemptions for improvements made to buildings. And there is a list of about 6 to 7 property owners that applied for 5-year tax exemptions. And if you add any improvements on your home, you can get these. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Commissioner Grinberg, you had to make a comment.
Yeah, just more of a comment than anything. Tonight, it's very rare that something doesn't make the agenda that we have kind of like, okay, how did, the situation tonight. But earlier, or last week, I was just, call it a comment. I didn't understand that any department head can place something on the agenda without the city administrator or the CEO of our city, by home rule charter, they can have the right to put something on the agenda. And I just went, I never knew that. Because there's a lot of regular committee work, planning commission, tax exempt committee, liquor control, all comes, which is a natural process to come before us. I just didn't understand or believe that it was possible for a department head to place something on the agenda without the knowledge of the administrator or the mayor. And I just thought that was very unusual.
Did you get in trouble?
No. I won't get into the particular reason that's on the consent agenda, but we have the right to put things on the agenda as elected officials. I just thought there should be more of a process, or understood there was more of a process for Ben Dow if he had an idea to put it on the agenda without at least vetting that through proper channels. And apparently that's not the case. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mr. Strand.
Actually, citizens might have access to put things on the agenda too.
Kimber, you want to make any comment on that? Or Bruce Grubb, do you want to make any comment on that?
While they're walking up, I can offer at least an observation. So you approve sort of rules of conduct whenever there's a new commission. So I think the last time it was approved was 2016 or 2018 actually. So in there it talks about how you get something on the agenda,
Sure. Yep.
including ordinances.
So Kimber, just to explain the rules of when you have to receive the agenda items typically by and what happens that morning on Thursday?
By noon on Thursdays, the Thursday prior to a city commission meeting, I have to receive the items. Because
And
I
Bruce-
have a deadline.
Is there any difference between consent and non-consent items? Do you have any input on that? Bruce Scrub.
Yeah, I don't see I've been here for 30 years, department head for 26 of those, and been able to put things on the agenda as a department head. Now, normally, I would let my boss, the city administrator, know it's coming, that type of thing. But I didn't have to have the city administrator put it on the agenda on my behalf. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the way we've operated. So, yeah, and back in the day when I first became a department head and brought items in as a department head for the agenda, the former executive assistant would decide, we would discuss that, is this a consent agenda item or a regular agenda item? If there was any risk of any discussion at all, we went regular agenda, but I normally, as the department head, had that discussion with the executive assistant, and Kimber and I have kind of continued to do that, make that call. She will come to me as city administrator if she has any question at all. Does this belong as a consent agenda item? And I will provide my advice. So.
And as part of the agenda, just to clarify for the public, is that any commissioner has the right to pull it from the consent agenda to put it on regular agenda. And what most department heads try to do is if they don't think there's a lot of controversy or if it's almost bread and butter type of things, they put that in consent. If they think there's some issues surrounding it, then they oftentimes will move it to a regular agenda. So thank you for bringing that up.
Just an observation.
Any other discussion? Thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.